other avenues of security. Like I said, if you can't respond, there's no point in having it. There are a lot of different kinds of seals out there. Nobody really knows how many. We think there are somewhere in the neighborhood of 5,000 or so. The applications vary. They're all over the board. You're probably most familiar with the seals used on products in the stores for like your drugs, your food, stuff like that. Those are all the seals, types of seals. Roger's going to pass out some seal examples. But before he does that, he has a couple things he wants to say.
Yeah, I'm going to pass out some variety of samples. Just a disclaimer. We're not saying these are good or bad. We're not saying we've analyzed them. We're not saying we haven't. They just give you examples of seals. Some of them are opened and some of them are closed. We'd ask you not to close the ones that are opened because, number one, we just have to open them and we have better things to do. And number two, the other people won't be able to see the mechanisms. So I'll just start passing these around.
And while he's doing that, I have an example up here of an electronic seal. This is sort of an expensive little guy. All it does is, right down here, you put a cable in these holes and turn it on, and it generates a number. The number in this case, 5318. So if at a later time somebody comes and takes the cable out of here, you get a new number. So you come back as an inspector and you have a new number there, you know somebody's gotten to the cable and gotten into whatever you're attempting to protect.
Yeah, where's the interface to that?
Say again?
Where's the JTAG on that?
It's visual. The inspector has to come and just look at it manually, just like we are.
No, I see it, but where's the JTAG on that? And I'll give you whatever number you want.
Well, you're absolutely right. In fact, there are easier ways than the JTAG, which I'll get into in just a second. But not specifically for this device because we won't call out or pick on specific products.
I'm also going to pass out a book that's got a bunch of adhesive label seals, and you can take a look. Some of these are very frangible. Others leave behind the word void, tampering, or locked if the seal's open. One of them, even before you open it, has this big scary do not tamper, which is no doubt its best security feature because it no doubt scares the adversaries away.
All right. We've looked at, well, the results I'm going to show you are the results of looking at, in depth, 244 seals in detail. Now, we've actually looked at hundreds of more seals than this, but the results are qualitatively the same. Now, we've looked at government and commercial seals. We looked at mechanical, electronic seals, low-tech from the adhesive label stuff you're seeing to very high-tech, where fiber optic systems are used and they're looking at laser light pulses, etc. There's a cost variance of several orders of magnitude. Some of these seals are several pennies. Some of these seals are thousands of dollars a piece. Half the seals we've looked at are in use in some sort of critical application or some application that folks would consider to be critical application. And 19% of the seals that we looked at involve nuclear safeguards of some sort. The results of our research is that one person using very low-tech methods can defeat half the seals in a minute or less. They can defeat 95% of the seals in under 10 minutes. Oh, sorry. My bad. Coming up. Here's our graph. 50%. Thank you. 50% of the seals in under a minute. Now, remember, some of these things are thousands of dollars. What does that tell you? Well, we work for a national laboratory, but we've never had to use the resources of a national laboratory. What we do is we go to Home Depot. We go to the local dental supply store. We go to the artisan stores, you know, paint matching, stuff like that. We've never had to get high tech on any of these seals, even the ones for nuclear safeguards, unfortunately. Here's some more statistics. The median attack time is 43 seconds. The average is a little under a minute and a half. The most telling statistic here is that we don't sit around scratching our heads trying to figure out how to defeat this stuff. The median time to develop an attack is 12 minutes. Here's some more charts for you. The top left chart there shows the attack time versus seal cost. It's a log-log chart. It's pretty scattered. There's no real good correlation here. However, if you believe that there is a slope of the line, what you get out of it is for every extra dollar you spend, you actually increase the attack time by about 270 milliseconds. So that's something to keep in mind if any of you want to go buy some expensive seals. Another chart, the lower right there, it's again not very, there's not a high correlation there, but that shows the level of techness when it comes to attack time or defeat time. Now, the level of techness is pretty subjective, admittedly, but you see that there's no correlation. If you believe that there is a correlation and you want to use the slope of the line here, if you increase by one technology level, you increase attack time by about 170 milliseconds. One thing to note about the more complicated, high-end, high-tech seals is that it's more complicated, which means there are more avenues to go after as potential bad guy or hacker. So those usually fail epically compared to the adhesive label, which fail just by coming up without damaging themselves. Again, like Roger said, we're going to apologize. We're not going to show specific attacks on specific products. It's just sort of the name of the game. However, we can talk about general attacks. One of the #1 ways to attack a seal is you pick it open. You can do this just with your fingers. You can do this with tools or solvents out there. A lot of different ways to do it. You might use shims. We've been known to use fishing line. Anything that works is fair game. Counterfeiting often works. If you actually destroy the seal that you're trying to get into, you just go find other seal parts that they've thrown away and use those to. So this goes back to chain of custody. When you get done using a seal, you don't just toss it in a dumpster. Somebody dumpster dives and now they have parts. Repairing a seal usually leaves some sort of damage. It's usually damaged after you break in and get what you're going after. So oftentimes we'll just repair the damage we've done. For example, we might drill a hole, which we can then pick our way in. And then we just reseal the hole later. So there are a lot of different attacks here. There's a citation. You can get more information on these various attacks. Electronic seals. My personal favorite attack on electronic seals is the man in the middle. Now, somebody over here was talking about JTAG a second ago, and that sort of, to me, that means getting into the firmware and doing all that cool high. Well, you know, you don't really need to get that technical on any of this stuff, actually. Hijacking the display is a subset of a man-in-the-middle attack. So let's say you've got an electronic reader, which is reading some unique signature from the seal, and you've got an inspector looking at this reader. He's going to believe whatever the display tells him. So if you hijack the display, if you intercept the communication stream between the microcontroller and the display, you can now filter what's being shown on the display. If the microcontroller says alarm, alarm, and you filter that out and say okay, okay, the inspector has no choice but to believe that seal. So anyway, that's a very low-tech, you don't need to understand firmware, you don't need to reverse anything, you don't need to go, you know, totally crazy. A lot of other different electronic attacks out there, but you can, you know, cool the power crystals, or I'm sorry, you can cool the quartz crystals to slow the clock down. You can attach, you can glitch attack the power line. There are all kinds of things you can do.
Well, one of the key points in any kind of security device, but particularly with seals, is that manufacturers and vendors claim often they have a unique manufacturing process that no one else can match. In our experience, that's usually not true, but it doesn't really matter, because what's often overlooked is an adversary doesn't really have to counterfeit a device. She's just got to make it look sort of like the original device and maybe have some kind of the performance features of the device. That's much easier than true counterfeiting. The average person is familiar with seals in the context of tamper-evident packaging required by law in the United States on all over-the-counter pharmaceuticals. Been remarkably little study on tamper-evident packaging. The FDA must approve it all, but doesn't really have any standards or guidelines or any explanation of how they approve or don't approve. So we did a little experiment. We went to the 7th Security Seals Symposium, and we had 71 tamper detection experts look at some products that had been tampered with. The work was done by a college student, Sonia Trujillo, which is a computer science major. And she basically attacked some and not others food and over-the-counter pharmaceutical products. And the results, as you might suspect at this point, was the tamper detection experts were no better than random guessing at which packages or containers had been tampered with. So the obvious question is, if experts can't tell, what possibilities does the average consumer have? And indeed, tamper-evident packaging is not about effective tamper detection. It's about